And I think based on how this conversation's flowing, things fall in very nicely to the second point I wanted us to discuss and talk about, and that was the fact that, why are Lampard's new signings struggling? Why is the integration process not fluid enough? Why is it that we're seeing bits of forms of great play and then bits of forms of really terrible play? And to start with things, I want to ask your opinion, Joe. What's been your opinions behind the transfer strategy this season? Do you think maybe it was a bit overzealous? Did we maybe take advantage of situations in the market which we really had to? Or do you think maybe there should have been more consideration about how this season could have evolved due to circumstances affecting it?
I think in answering this, I mean, obviously hindsight plays a huge role. Looking back now, whether spending the 125, 30 million, whatever it is on Timo and Kai at this point looks justified to manage, given how the team have performed and how they've personally kind of fared. I think at the time you have to sort of take a view kind of in sort of the situation as it was at the time. I think if you have an opportunity, particularly with someone like Kai Havertz, who I still think will go on to become an exceptionally good player here, I think if you have the chance to sign something like that, particularly someone that Bayern Munich pretty much felt that they had in their pockets and their talent ID is pretty decent in most respects, I think you have to try and get him. I think sort of looking at the situation now, probably the biggest thing, and it won't be a surprise to anyone that talks to me sort of privately, will know that I think that we don't quite have the sort of spine of the team settled with the kind of quality and personalities and really sort of the profile of player that you would want to start sort of hanging kind of the ornaments around, like the nice fancy pieces around sort of that spine.
That's a nice analogy. I like it.
That's a nice one.
Yeah. I thought I've been waiting to use that one for a while. So
he's had it in the chamber.
Yeah.
I've had it. I
would love to hear that.
Yeah. So the nice little ornaments around the kind of spine, the decoration of the tree, if you want. And I think personally, I mean, we are going to talk about patterns of play, I know, in a little bit, and obviously the circle of doom picture that was floating around on social media, the big wide open circle, but. It starts for me, I think personally, as someone who used to be an ex-midfielder, an ex-holding player, that winning the midfield in the Premier League is probably one of the most important things that you can do. If you look at any real top team that's won the Premier League over the past few seasons, they have a real strength and identity and quality within their midfield unit. Whether it's the physicality and the drive and determination that Liverpool's midfield have, it's the quality with the defensive skill of like a Fernandinho that City have had. Chelsea's really top midfields, sort of even recent ones where he won the title, the sort of Kante and Matic kind of combination in there. We go back to the Balaks, the Lampards, the Essiens, the Makalé. I mean, we can go back on Chelsea's midfield. And I think looking at Chelsea's current sort of situation, when we're looking at sort of the players, a lot of the players that we bought were what I consider to be accessory players. I think someone like Kai Havertz, for me, Kai Havertz is a final third player. He is somebody that you get the ball to in the final third, then you let him make the decision, you let him play the pass, you let him sort of work his magic. And I think what we're seeing in the midfield is that we don't really have that profile of player who can progress the ball to someone like Havertz in those sort of dangerous areas. And he's often coming deep, and he's often having to be that player who is looking for that pass into the final third. So for me, sort of him as an accessory player, he doesn't have that kind of the spine player next to him who's sort of going to be providing that level of service and passing quality, and also a little bit of defensive robustness, so he doesn't have to do so much work. Timo Werner, I was a little bit, I wouldn't say dubious, it's probably the wrong word, but maybe a little bit cautious in terms of his success here. I think when you look at how he played in Germany, the sort of the way that most German teams compress the pitch, the majority of German teams play a high line, high press. And know that if you watch a lot of Timo Werner's goals in Germany, they're him running through on goal, they're him in space, etc. It doesn't excuse some of the finishing that we've seen from him this season. I think that is just down to a lack of confidence and maybe just I think the tiredness, and I think the point about him not having a winter break and maybe just the intensity has taken him a little bit by surprise. But he's another player who's a little bit kind of hit and miss. But again, if you're trying to sort of go and elevate the team and looking for a forward player, somebody who has scored the number of goals he has, it for me was probably a worthwhile gamble. I still think that we lack a real quality centre half. If Thiago Silva was 7 years younger, he would be ideal. But a real kind of quality player in that sort of position there. I speak about holding midfielders and probably another central midfielder as well. in those sort of two positions, and then a real focal point as a forward. I know we're being linked with Haaland at the moment, and that kind of profile would seem to be somebody that potentially is going to be like a focal point of the attack. But then I just think that we have kind of gone out into the market and bought a lot of very good accessory players. But it's like when you build a house, you have to have a solid foundation. You've got to have a good pair of centre-halves. You've got to have a good holding player. If you want to play a 4-3-3, you have to have someone, particularly in the Premier League, that can screen an entire back four, that can cover sideline to sideline, that can pass, that can be aggressive, can make decisions. You know, it's a really specialised role, and only really, really good players excel there. And again, you go back to even in European football, you think of all the real top teams, they've always had a really fantastic DM in that position to kind of let other players do their thing. And I think we kind of missed that sort of that kind of influence there. And I think in terms of how Lampard has used them, you know, Werner playing left wing, playing centre forward, etc. I don't think, you know, we're talking about consistency of selection and building sort of confidence in players. That sort of switching around is not particularly helped him. And again, if you're buying him, it kind of infers that you're making a commitment to try and get him to work in some capacity.
Yeah.
I've been surprised with Werner that we haven't tried to play him as a two up top, try and play a midfield diamond, you know, use Kai as a number 10. Maybe you have Kova and Mason as sort of your two central midfielders, and Kante holding something a little bit different to try and get him closer to goal, to get him up playing with a Giroud or an Abraham.
These are your wingers though, Joe, don't you? You Hakim Ziyech, Pulisic, Cho.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose with those, I mean, maybe bar Cho in the past couple of games, I've not been overly impressed with Pulisic to the point in the season where I'd say that he has to play games.
Yeah.
I think he would back in, and he can also play in that number 10 for me as well. If you want the dribbler, you want the dynamism. But I mean, I'd say not looking as a long-term solution, but probably as a system that I'm just surprised that we haven't tried something
to build his confidence. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And Havertz is the same. I think Havertz eventually probably does become a central midfielder, but dropping a guy in no pre-season into the Premier League, expecting him to play in this tempo, this style. Plus, I think the COVID thing really has taken a lot out of him. Because it was the Burnley game before I think he had COVID. I think he was exceptional in that game.
Yeah, one-touch passing and everything. It was incredible alongside Ziyech too. Yeah.
And then I think Ziyech was a good signing. You know, a guy that you're trying to get in their prime, somebody who solves a creative kind of element. Again, he's been injured. He's been sort of fits and starts. You know, in terms of how he sort of featured. And probably, the last signing really worth talking about is probably Chilwell, who I think started very well. I think the injury again has sort of really kind of disrupted his season. And I do have I wouldn't say they're considerable concerns, but they're simmering, I would say, at the moment, about how he actually plays with Pulisic ahead of him. You could look at the Leicester game in isolation, and then maybe this is doing them both a little bit of disservice, but they look like they'd never ever passed the football to each other before. The chemistry, some of the timing of the runs, the passing was off. You could see sometimes one of them would make a movement and they play the ball in the completely opposite direction. I personally think that Chilwell does need not a lot of cover, but he needs somebody to help back and cover back in terms of his defensive duties. And it's not something I always see Pulisic being super willing to do. And that overall kind of chemistry between them, I'm a little bit concerned with if that is the left-hand side of the future. So, yeah, I mean, in total, I could see why you went for the players at the time. But perhaps in hindsight, and maybe for me, I'm very much about the spine of the team, the foundations of the team. You know, you could argue that money potentially buys you a really top quality centre half, a really top quality holding player, and potentially a top quality centre forward. But then you start sort of putting your fancy players around them and sort of making them part of an overall system. But it's tricky to argue in hindsight that you shouldn't go and buy a Kai Havertz. You shouldn't try and take advantage of the situation to buy a player who, let's not forget, because of all the narratives that happen these days, he was one of the most highly sought after, highly recognised, highly revered talents coming out of Germany for almost a decade. Like, people were really saying that this kid is going to be something special. Yeah. And I still do believe that he will be. So I think you do obviously take the opportunity to make those signings. I just think that potentially now that you have Havertz, I think you try to build the kind of attack around him. And same with Timo Werner. I think you try and do more to help him either play in a two or to put him in positions where he's more comfortable. But as you've seen this season, it's been injuries, it's been stop-start. There's been lots of sort of different factors in terms of team selections. I don't think we've really had like the ideal solution or the ideal time to kind of work through some of these things. But as we've said, these are problems that all teams in the Premier League are facing due to the pandemic, etc. So it's not a unique situation, but it probably does explain to some extent why we are struggling to to kind of really properly get the best out of a group of players who are very talented, but potentially need to be put in positions that are going to help them succeed. Certainly in their first season in the Premier League, it is not an easy league for people to come in, certainly with no pre-season, the way things have been this season, the pandemic, to come in and just hit the ground running and be the player that people expect them to be.
Yeah, I fully agree, man. I think that acclimatization period is always key, especially for young players coming from the Bundesliga. And I think, as Werner was saying in the club interview, I think last month, not even too long ago, he understood the Premier League was intense, but he was really taken aback by just how intense it was, just how fast it was, just how willing people are to close you down. It's really unrelenting. And of course, when you're trying to force the style that you sign these guys for. Me personally, I get it from a business point of view. I do understand that to get someone like Kai, if you had the opportunity to get him now and to beat the competition, in the long term, it makes a lot of sense to do so. And I think in the long term, we are going to be like, wow, this was like an incredible piece of business. Thank God we did this, etc., etc. But at the same time, as you were saying, you used to play as a midfield player. Obviously, you understand in the Premier League, which I think we'll all agree with, one of the most intense leagues. And considering the power you need to have in midfield especially, I mean, you're not winning anything if your midfield's not patterning, if your midfield's not on point. You need that cover, I feel, that successor of the addition alongside Akanse in the CDM position, because Lampard's been calling out for midfield players since last year. And I was personally a little bit disappointed. I won't touch on it too long, but I was a bit disappointed that we've really struggled to move on players that are on six figures. I mean, I'm looking at Alonso, I'm looking at Rudiger, I'm looking at Jorginho, I'm looking at, so many of these guys, and guys who are close to that amount in Emerson as well. And not being able to sell them on to reinvest that money into the area we really needed could be making the biggest difference of our season right now, because whenever Kante, I feel, is not in the team, the intensity levels aren't the same, because we can't be expecting that from a Kai that he's played so many different formations due to so many reasons, like fitness concerns, or having to rehabilitate himself, or just having to play in certain positions because we've had injuries. You know what I mean? For a young guy to come to a new league with all this type of pressure on him, naturally it's going to take him a long time to adapt. But I don't know, I do feel like if we're really going to spend this type of money in the window, we have to really do it properly. And it feels like in the end we are going to be facing some consequences in the future due to the struggles to move these guys on. I mean, the fact that Alonso, after flirting very audaciously, commenting after certain defeats and kind of flirting with Atletico Madrid, for it to come out eventually that no club is showing interest at all, when he had how many clubs after him in the summertime, is very concerning, especially in regards to things like balancing the books, amortization, all those types of financial business club reasons that are very important, that help you fund your Haalands, your Rices, your whoever. So of course, man, Jan,
can I pick up
segue.
on?
Of course, man.
Yeah, well, I was going to pick up on, because originally the point was being like the new players fitting in. Just wanted to talk about Timo Werner and Kai a little bit more, because they're obviously the hot topics in terms of the headlines. With Timo, we wanted to buy a striker. The only type of striker that's going to drop in, plug and play, do a job is someone like prime Diego Costa. That's going to do his own thing. He's got the
or Moussa Dembele from Lyon as well.
Sure,
Lampard was after.
Yeah. But that kind of player that can drop in has the ability to combine, but ultimately you can just let them do their thing. Hassan Hutel made some recent comments about Timo Werner, because obviously he had him, and he talked about catering towards him. This kind of goes back to what I said about different player profiles, and he wants to play on the shoulder. And even though we haven't been doing that at all to Timo Werner, he still started well. The two goals, was it against Southampton? 2 excellent goals. The one when he took it on his chest, juggled it over the keeper, headed it over. He's done low drives, spinning on the half turn, and putting it bottom corner. He scored. Look at his goals for Chelsea. He scored so far; they're good. He went away on the international break in November, got battered by Spain 6-0, and came back broken. That is literally the turning point of Timo Werner's.
Really good point. Yeah.
Mate, honestly, look at it. Look at the timeline. He was really good. Timo Werner starts really well for Chelsea, hits the ground running. And when in the narrative at the time, I'll expand on this just a moment because it shifted a little bit. Is he was just scoring goals. Sure, he might have come out with, this league's hard, but he didn't look like it. He was getting bodied and he was getting up. It was Kai Havertz that was getting rattled, hit the ground, and he was like, what? You could see it on his face. He was like, what the hell? And this is like a 6'2", kid. But Timo Werner, he was running. He ran to the end. He looked like high octane. He was scoring great goals.
Yeah.
And then he went away and he came back broken. I think that he's a confident striker. That's apparently been evident throughout his whole career. So he'll inevitably, when confidence returns, be better. But I think also it's Chelsea's responsibility and Lampard's responsibility, or whoever the coach is, to cater to these certain needs alongside the nurturing of confidence. But regardless, if he feels good, he will score.
Yeah.
In relation to Kai Havertz, who I actually thought at the beginning, I was really worried about him acclimatizing to the league. Out of all these signings, I do 100% agree with Kai Havertz signing. I remember, listening to the Tifo podcast guys saying they think he's going to be top 3 players in the world in a few years. And that was like a unanimous agreement of these like football analysts saying, absolutely, this guy, he's going to be incredible. And just even Leicester, I know he wasn't good against Leicester particularly, but there's that one moment that he's done recently where 3 players press him. He doesn't, pass out of the press really quickly. He doesn't like do a little like Zidane roll and get out or something that Kovacic might do, this sort of silk highlights reel. He literally just backs himself, finds the channel and drives and floats and carries on floating. And it's almost like in water. It's almost like if you put 3 things in water and someone swam away from him, they sort of draw behind and go in, to his like path. That's how he like floats and just charges through, glides through. It's not erratic. It's graceful. He can do little one touches. His weak foot is immaculate. The little disguised pass he did to Tammy the other day, straight forwards. He's always thinking like that. Yeah. That is in him. He is built for that. And what's been pleasing for me is a little bit more he's dealing better with the physicality. Yeah. I feel pretty good about Kai Havertz. I agree with Joe, you got to get him to do his thing in the final third, but at the same time you can see why Frank Lampard for a while, and I don't know if he was pressurized by the club to do this or not, because he seemingly is very much a club signing rather than a Lampard signing. He played a 4-2-3-1 before this winning run on the 4-3-3, and Kai Havertz was the number 10, and they had the 2 midfielders, and he could literally go where he wants. It's like, Kai, do what you think, express yourself, go naturally, go and combine with the left back, go and combine with the holding player, and then or stay in the final third, go where the ball is basically. Wherever the possession was on the pitch, Kai Havertz was inclined to float around. People tried to man mark him, but it was pointless because he was floating off in like silly places. And that was the plan. That was like, okay, so he's going to be our superstar, and obviously that's a little bit high pressure early doors, but in terms of his natural raw ability, I'm not worried about him. I think he'll be okay, but he'll need to be sort of managed appropriately in terms of being in the right places. I'm not sure he can have that completely free role. But, and that's how, I just wanted to say that about those 2 players.
I fully agree. To even just like even to touch on further with your point as well, just to add to it and stuff like that, I do think that I think we all agree that Kai has his purpose here. I think that he is going to become good eventually. I do think that maybe it's all about easing his acclimatization. And I mean, it's been weird. It's been weird because before that, after that Burnley game, I was not expecting anything to happen, and then we had 3 injuries. To Ziyech, to Pulisic, to Hudson-Odoi, and then Kai got COVID like that. That boom, straight away, your 4 key attacking players are absolutely out, and then because these other 3 guys are out, Kai has to come back quicker to try and get back to full speed, which he can't do outside of out of playing games, because I'm guessing Joe obviously, because the first team has its own separate bubble. Maybe back in previous seasons, you're able to train with under 23s to be able to get game time, improve, and then that way it's a pressure-free environment to be able to exactly, and to get back to your full fitness. So it's just funny for me because with all our new signings, they were clearly signed to be playing together. I think that was the whole plan, and I understand why Lampard is always forcing these moments, because he's always thinking, every time I have an opportunity to do something with these guys. It really is, you know, it's really worthwhile to do, because I know once they're firing, things are going to work. But I think this is where the experience needs to come into place. This is where picking and choosing the moments and battles needs to come into place. I think games versus City and Leicester City, they don't have to be played that way at all. We could have played a lot more compact. We could have played
Can I
a
ask
lot
you a
smarter.
question, Nini?
Yeah, man.
I know it's your stream, but I want to get your opinion on this. We all love how these signings were made, because it's like everyone's got a little bit of this FIFA mentality. New, exciting young players, loads of talent, wicked. But do you think, had we bought no one, we'd be in a better off position on the table?
I don't think if we bought no one, you know what, I'll be honest, obviously Timo Werner, and I was speaking about in the summer, I was kind of hinting at, okay, don't expect this guy to be like the first key name signing. Even though he's a great goal scorer, he's not the most complete football player, and there'll be times when Hudson-Odoi or Pulisic will be playing ahead of him, or Tammy's going to have a place with Dribbles. So I don't know. In hindsight, I guess you could say, was he the most necessary one? Because I think, as he was saying before, obviously we have guys like Hudson and Pulisic that could kind of fulfill that role from the left-hand side if you want Werner to be the guy who's, you know, breaking the lines from that left-hand side. And maybe if that wasn't the case, you can then really invest in that midfield player, which he really needs in this league. You know, you've got the money for Declan, who's ready to go, and you know.
Yeah, what I mean is like just the continuity from last season, if that was transferred into this season without the new signings.
Oh,
do you think Lampard wouldn't have lost his confidence? That's what I mean. Like, do you think we'd be in a better off position?
I'm not too sure, to be honest, man. I think obviously we saw the final limits in that final against Arsenal, where I think Lampard from then on was just like, nope. I mean, Jorginho cover. I've been talking about playing quickly, and the final was that moment to do so. We did it for the first 15 minutes, and then they didn't want to. So I can fully understand why Lampard is pushing that, but I don't know. It's just, it falls down to everything. If these guys could have been sold off, which they should have been with all the interest they had. I mean, I'm looking at Jorginho. By the time we were going to do business, Paulo was the Juventus manager, and that interest died down. I'm looking at your Emersons. They had all of Serie A after him. How the hell did he not get sold at all?
Italian international.
That's what I mean. Italian international. Marcus Alonso, back when, you know, he just came off a season playing consistently. There was moments to move a lot of these guys, and then Rudiger, Paris Saint-Germain. The funny thing was, you know, Tuchel wanted him there. So it just feels like we haven't helped things, but at the same time, you know, I think Lampard has to do what he was doing last season, as you're alluding to, Jan, and try and draw on that energy of, you know, finding the best balance, even though that is the hardest thing to do, because you kind of have like two different teams in one right now. So how do you actually find that perfect balance? I think we have it in Kante, but you can't rely on him because of he's overplayed, overused, and there's no one to replace. So yeah, I feel like we've really tackled on board this new signings struggling to integrate into the team. I think for the final part now, you guys, it's time to speak about some of the tactics, some of our patterns of play, and just how, you know, why we're seeing inconsistencies behind the quality at times.